Hi, and welcome back to another episode of E-Gunomics. I'm your host, Kyle McKnight. This program is sponsored by Cash for Arms. That's one of the nation's larger used gun buyers. So, without farther ado, our two guests this morning are Travis Fender and Stuart Pegues. Travis is our senior firearms specialist processor. He works on revolvers, bespoke lever actions, you name it. Stu is our head gunsmith. Don't let the blonde hair fool you. He has been in the industry for decades. He works on all kinds of very nice pieces, from Perazzi, Kolar, Winchester, you name it, Krieghoff. So, all right. Today's topic is going to be maybe a little touchy for some people, but I think it's a good thing to talk about, and it's relevant, and that is the decline of the American gun manufacturing scene since the 20th century into the present era. And really, these two people are more subject matter experts than I am on this, so I'm going to turn it over to them. We have three examples here today. A shotgun, of course, a lever action, and a revolver. We have the old Dirty Harry, and then we have, is this a Marlin here?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And then, of course, an 1100. Is this a Ducks Unlimited? Yeah, she's seen better days. But so I'm going to hand it over to you, Travis, and then Stu, you kind of work off him, and then I'll try to kind of interject when I need to if I can. All right. So
Sure. The other day I was thinking about car manufacturing. I'm big into cars. And it got me also thinking about the American gun manufacturing, seeing like how, Colt went from this big giant to now being owned by CZ now. And then many others have fallen to its similar fate. And now like the American big boys is now Smith and Wesson, Ruger, and many of them own other manufacturers and such. So that's pretty much just what I want to talk about. Some of the decisions a lot of these companies made, how some worked, a lot didn't work, and then how the scene is just changing in general. Similar to cars, where you keep making stuff and you're making quality stuff that lasts a while. Well, then people have a huge third-party market to draw from.
right.
And so it makes it harder and harder for the gun manufacturer to keep making such, because there's less demand. Because why would people want to buy some super overpriced retail thing when you can get a third-party version of it for, almost half the cost maybe, or something like that?
Or a used model from a better era.
And stuff.
How about we look at Remington first? I think they're a poignant example. Stu, what decade, in your opinion, as a professional gunsmith, would you say, like in terms of actual quality, Remington started to kind of decline?
Remington's really been in a decline for quite a while. I think it really revolves around the Walker trigger design, which is ultimately what was one of the nails that destroyed the company. When Walker designed his trigger in the 1940s, they got an industrial engineer to make it cheaper. And by doing that, it introduced a design flaw that ultimately Remington got sued for decades. And they won most years, but eventually when they did lose, they had to pay out all those suits. So,
right.
So really, I mean, the flaw in their design really started in the 40s, but that wasn't necessarily that the company was really bad. I mean, they still designed some flagship guns that have been absolute category killers and amazing firearms. However, after their designs, after they designed this perfect gun, they turned around and engineered it in a way to be made cheaper, and ultimately those decisions are what killed companies like that. And with Remington having done that as bad as they did, especially towards the right before their bankruptcy, they got really bad in quality control and just I mean, everything was falling apart for them. And, you know, some of that's to blame with the Sandy Hook shooting. Some of that's to blame with the Walker Trigger lawsuits. Some of that's to blame with Remington not leaving the North after Sandy Hook. After the removal of most firearms companies to the South. So all that's kind of just not worked in their favor and ultimately killed them. And now they're spread out everywhere.
Did they declare bankruptcy?
They did.
They did. Okay. Never a good sign. But
that wasn't the first time either.
No. Oh, okay.
That's the problem. Yeah.
I mean, like you said, they make made some great category killers. I mean, you'd say the 1100 qualifies as that.
Oh, absolutely. 1100 is one of the best semi-automatic shotgun designs ever made. I mean, for its time, it was absolutely immaculate gun. And it's still competing. I mean, it has the longevity. It's still competing with guns of today, in the ability for that gun to continue to function and be a great gun. But if you look at the design over the decades of its production, you know, it's definitely had some issues with it in later production, finishes and stuff like that. Just parts not working out as well. The plant wasn't necessarily making the guns as well, so you'll see a lot of the older 1100s are selling for a better price than the newer ones, and that goes to show you just some of the quality of that build was maintained initially, but and you know it had good and bad times, but you know ultimately, especially in the new millennium, the gun definitely has been hurt in reputation by basically its production standards.
Yeah, you know, a really beat up example in front of us here. It is a Dux Unlimited, which is pretty cool, but I mean, got rust, got pitting, everything. Missing some wood here. You guys can't see that, but on the other end of the forend. And even still, this shotgun will bring over $500 at auction, even in its current state. And maybe that's a testament to the brand Remington, to the 1100. You know, Firearmland sold a minty example of a 28 gauge 1100. Was it the LW? I think something like that. And that brought over $2,300 or around $2,300. You know, museum quality example. No scratches, no scuffs, nothing. And you know, so that still got over 2,000. So they're very desirable guns. You know, in a very shooter's grade. You know, a average Remington 1100 is going to get around $600 to $1,000. There's a little bit of a spread. But Travis, would you kind of agree in terms of Smith and Wesson? Is it a similar to what he just said with Remington, or are they kind of their own
no,
tragedy?
Smith has survived a lot of hardships to be the number one gun manufacturer in North America right now. I think it's more of a testament for they tried a lot of things. They have a lot of diversity when you look at their catalog.
Right.
I mean, obviously for me, revolvers, there's a million model with different cartridges, barrel lengths, finishings, just what they're made of and everything. That's really helped them survive. They've also, you know, tapped in other markets. They have their own like AR, you know, the M&P AR. Yeah. They have some pretty good line of personal defense semi-autos, like the nines and shields, you know, things like that. So they're, I think, a great example of what the American market should have done. They also was way more tapped into like law enforcement contracting and things like that. Not so much focus on military contracts, which was the downfall Colt, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah.
One of many things with Colt, but I think that was a big issue with them. That Colt didn't diversify their catalog like Smith and Wesson. They were pretty much making 1911s, you know, their snake guns.
Exactly. Yeah.
And single action army. And then really reliant on getting military contracts for ARs, and still when the U.S. Army and such were still using 1911. When they got replaced by Beretta, that was a huge blow to them. So.
Yeah. And what about our specimen in the middle here, Marlin? I've heard some things anecdotally that they're just slapping like a JM stamp on it, even though like perhaps it doesn't mean as much as it used to. Are they
Well,
similar?
that was a production era, so
Yeah.
when they stopped JM stamping, that's when they transferred ownership.
Okay.
Marlin in themselves is really just they've always been in somebody else's shadow. They make some pretty good guns. They're not, they don't have any major category killers. But if you're going to talk about the 336, then you also have to talk about the Winchester 94.
Exactly. Yeah.
If you're going to talk about the Marlin Model 60, you also got to talk about the 1022. So like they have a bunch of flagship guns, but those guns compete heavily and are not winning in the market share. So they don't have that gun that just destroys all other competition. They have some select models that are desirable, certainly for sure, but they've never, they don't have a 15 million, like we sold 15 million of them in this amount of time. They don't have that kind of stuff.
It's not a 1022 at the end of the day. Their models, yeah. So that's interesting, and a lot of guys love the Marlin 336s. Our Cash Firearms will get clients every day, and they go, "I've JM stamp, gold trigger." And there is something to be said for that, so it's a reputation, it's not all for naught. But yeah, the theme is that Marlin's sort of eclipsed by other products, Ruger the Behemoth. So
yeah, they just never hit it like a real home run, so to speak. They were, as Stu was saying, always behind somebody else and such.
Yeah, the general decline of American manufacturing. So it's sort of endemic, maybe, focusing on some other American things that are declining. It's like manufacturing. Yeah, you were mentioning cars. I mean, there's just so many horror stories from GM. So
that GM did a lot of mistake. Quality control, things like that, which sound similar to like Remington had. Yeah. But I think also what to think about is a lot of foreign influence coming into the market after World War II and such, and especially in the like 70s, 80s, and 90s. You look at even just military contracts or law enforcement. You have things like 6 Hour, Glock, Beretta, really pushing into the market and really forcing the American manufacturers to change their standards or to meet these new innovations that was coming, over from Europe and such.
That's certainly fascinating. It's really nice that we live in, America, and we can still purchase firearms that are decades old, well maintained, in great shape. That's the silver lining here, is that we're not forced to buy quote unquote new garbage or anything like that. We can still kind of collect these fine examples here. But really, I think the theme of this episode is that some American manufacturers kind of had their golden era already. I think Remington might be a good example of that. But that doesn't mean that if you bought a Remington 700 synthetic stock in 2006 or whatever, we're not saying it's a bad rifle. We're just saying that there's a noted decline in some of these industry leaders. Remington, Marlin. I can think of a couple, and really it's just kind of perhaps endemic of a greater American experiment going on here. Are we going to keep flying high like any bald eagle in terms of our quality, or are we going to kind of just like sink into the mud here of mediocrity? I'm thinking like Turkish shotguns and things. So, but
well, with that being said, we do still have high-end manufacturing here. It's just it's not these flagship or these big companies anymore. Like there's plenty of companies in America producing very high quality firearms, and there's nothing wrong with that. it would have been beneficial for some of these bigger names, some of these historic American names, to actually produce guns that Americans want. I mean, America's never really been, a super high quality manufacturer in comparison to other countries with firearms. I mean, particularly Europe. You look at some of the firearms and from the scenes of London production, Birmingham production, and various other countries out there. They've always been producing better guns than us, higher quality, far more expensive. I mean, you start talking about $100,000 guns. There's not a lot of places in America doing that. But there's quite a handful of them doing them in Europe. And but with that being said, like Remington came out and said, like, hey, we produce a gun that fits our market share. And I was like, and they were saying, like, basically we can't make a rifle and sell it for $2,000. And I think in today's day and age we've determined that's not true. There's bigger companies now producing some guns that are high quality but still in a price point that's affordable, and you're not sacrificing anything. That's the big thing, is like, the companies shouldn't have to make sacrifices to make quality products. They should do what it takes to make those quality products and then let the market figure out whether they want to buy those or not. If you compare the 1100 and its initial price point to the Beretta A400, I mean, the A400 is a very expensive gun, but yet they're setting record sales with those. So I mean, you look at the Remington 700, that was a flagship rifle for Remington, and it's honestly an extremely well-designed gun. As a matter of fact, most of the American clone rifles are based off of that platform. Defiance, Surgeon, whoever it may be, who make these much higher quality guns. But I mean, if you look at the Bergara, I think it, at its price point and for what it is, it's probably one of the best mass-produced bolt action rifles out there. They don't make a whole lot of or have a whole lot of problems with those guns. Like, they have a quality stock on them. The barrels are high quality. The receivers are high quality. The triggers are high quality. So like, and they're not ungodly expensive. They're not $3,000, $4,000, or $5,000 rifles.
Maybe the gist of this episode is if you're an American gun manufacturer, make a higher quality product, charge a little more, and people will buy it. Beretta's a great example, like you just said. Make a nicer product, charge a little more, and expect great results if you made a nicer product. The gun guys are ready to spend, and it's not like it's some disposable, bottle of champagne or something. They're going to have the gun for, until they want to get rid of it. So I think that's a great stopping point here. This has been another lovely episode of E-Gunomics. I'm your host, Kyle McKnight. This program is sponsored by Cash for Arms. And today our guests were Travis Fender and Stuart Pegues, and we hope to have them on soon. All right. Thank you very much. All right. Bye-bye.